What is up, guys? Viper here. I thought I'd give a quick update video on what I've been playing currently and how it's going. I am still using my Ice Strike Monk. It's gotten up to like 84 or something, but I had an idea to play Ice Shot Deadeye because it seemed very fun. And the idea of getting an additional projectile while forking through this bow passive node right here, or these projectile nodes right here, sounded really cool because you get a 100% chance for an additional projectile when forking, which means that once Ice Shot will hit, it should fork, and then it would fork into two Ice Shots that will then turn into the six projectiles, meaning 12 and 6, 18. Like it'll just completely like overload the entire map. Now, it does come at a cost of 50% less damage when forking, so it might not be fully worth it. That's what I'm messing with right now. I'm trying to see whether or not I can fully tell the difference. Like if I was to take out fork entirely, how different the build might feel. If it still feels the same, it's a waste of a skill gem and a waste of a couple of nodes. So I could always update the build on that. But as for the passive skill tree goes, we rushed ourselves in early game. We rushed ourselves to the bow nodes here, and then we also rushed ourselves to these accuracy nodes because in the early game, whenever you don't have your three projectiles, being able to hit is very important. Also, what we used to level was lightning arrow with the lightning rod ability, very good, like tons of shock damage, and we used ice shot to kind of freeze stuff as like an oh shit button. And it was pretty good. I liked it a lot. And then once we hit level 31, we switched over to ice shot, and we haven't looked back. So basically, the skill tree was rushed to the bow nodes over here, and then we rushed our accuracy to make sure that we were hitting, and then we rushed ourselves over to basically just like these projectile nodes. Like these projectile nodes are incredibly fun and cool for the build, and then the Herald of Ice nodes. Now that we've made it to the end, I beat Cruel like maybe 5 hours ago on this character. I think 4 hours ago on this character. I've been mapping for a little bit, but once we got to the end game, I decided to get rid of these nodes down here and replace them with these attack speed nodes here, because now that we're firing 3 or 4 projectiles per arrow, the accuracy isn't as important because one of them will hit, causing the ice shot to go off. And we can always roll accuracy on things like our quiver, our bow, or like our amulet or something like that. And it just hasn't felt as impactful as it did in the campaign. So the future plans for the tree at the moment, we're going to be finishing up a couple of crit nodes, and then we'll be finishing up our survivability nodes. So for survival for this build, we're going for evasion and energy shield, mostly purely evasion. We'll be going, like I've already grabbed all these evasion nodes, we're going to be grabbing acrobatics and tailwind to scale our evasion even more. We'll probably be grabbing some of these nodes here and these nodes up here, like just to get ourselves a ton of evasion and some extra energy shield just for the fuck of it. Now, I will be kind of transitioning this into a crit build. I've been thinking about coming down here, grabbing these crit nodes versus grabbing these crit nodes, even though I am kind of close to these nodes. I'm really interested to see what's down here that we can go ahead and combine with everything. We can even get crit hit chance at the with the benefit of some accuracy, and then we also gain a ton of accuracy based on our crit hit chance, which that's looking very nice. In addition to this cluster right here, which will give us a ton of crit hit chance with accuracy, and that's kind of where we're going. We are going crit freeze, like ice damage with Herald of Ice, so kind of the same as Ice Monk, but this time ranged and with a projectile skill, which means that we're going to be scaling it with mostly projectile damage and then our crit and crit damage. So we still have these projectile nodes to grab here, and then we'll probably grab one of these here once we finish off with our crit nodes. As far as the Ascendancy goes, we went point blank and endless munitions. I don't really know what to pick here. Point blank is kind of a weird one because I'm pretty sure it works for the projectiles that fire from Ice Shot, meaning that the 6 projectiles that come from Ice Shot count as being close to where the arrow was that it came from, so point blank works for that. However, it doesn't work for the arrow traveling throughout the sky whenever it's trying to get to those enemies. So you'll be dealing less damage to those, but then you'll be dealing more damage to the enemies once they've split, is how I believe it works. Let me know in the comments if that is how it works or if that's not how it works. I am still pretty new to making my own builds or anything like that, so please let me know if I get anything wrong or if you guys have a suggestion for something to make the build better. But we went point blank and then we grabbed our endless munitions. We'll be grabbing Gathering Winds next once we get our 6th ascendancy point, just to give us a bunch of attack speed, or not attack speed, a bunch of movement speed and scaling our evasion even more. So that kind of ends it for the passive skill tree. Moving on to the skill setup at the moment. Um, Basic attack isn't very important. We don't use it all that often. As far as Ice Shot goes, we have qualityed it all the way up so that it does more attack damage, which is nice just for the initial hit on whatever it hits. We do have Fork in there at the moment. Like I said, I'm messing around with that extra projectile when forking, which seems really fun, but I haven't actually... To understand whether or not this is working the way I think it works, I have to go frame by frame in a video at some point and figure it out, because Ice Shot releases, I believe 6 shards, let me double check, 7 projectiles. So it fires 7 projectiles once it's actually hit something, and ideally, every arrow that hits should be splitting off into another arrow with fork, meaning that there should be 8 projectiles. However, with the additional projectile, it should be 9 projectiles. I'm not sure if that's fully working at the moment. I will leave a comment down below whether or not it is, because if it's not, we'll be taking this out to get a little bit more damage. But we've got Fork with Martial Tempo just for the attack speed is incredible. Pretty much any attack-based build is going to be using this right now. Cold Infusion to go ahead and get our Fizz to cold damage all the way up to 95%. And then we have Primal Armament on there. So as far as like the main way that we're gonna facilitate doing a bunch of damage is through Barrage, consuming some frenzy charges. So Barrage will go ahead and imbue your weapon with a flurry. Like down here it says that there's gonna be 2. So basically what happens is you'll use an ability once you have Barrage up, and it'll repeat that 2 times by default, and then 1 more time for every frenzy charge that was used. And I went ahead and qualityed this up because it has it repeats dealing 18% less damage at default without quality, but you can quality it up so that it's only doing 3% less damage, and then with the premeditation support, it makes it deal 15% more damage, meaning that we are at a plus 12% more damage, which is quite nice because more damage is a better multiplier than increased damage. We have Ingenuity just to help us get our cooldown back, and then Perpetual Charge. Now, for bosses, for clear, this is incredible, but I was having some problems with bosses in like mid-cruel area, so I was searching a little bit. Like I said, I don't look at other builds very often, but I did take some inspiration from a YouTuber called Aero, AER0. Check out his build on Ice Shot as well. Whether or not you want to go mine his whatever, it doesn't really matter to me. This is the one that I'm going to be playing. It's probably kind of similar, but he had a single target setup where he was using this ability that I had not seen yet called Frostwall, where you would set this up right here. It turns into a bit of terrain that enemies either have to walk through, or you can blow it up with damage, right? And it does a bunch of freeze buildup. It can even block people, slow people down from getting to you as like a nice layer of defense. But what you can also do is embed Stormcaller Arrow in them, and then when it shocks, it'll have a really high chance of shocking whatever's there, giving shock to the boss, and in addition to freeze, and then you can unleash your barrage, and basically you'll be dealing a crap ton of damage very quickly, and it's repeatable damage. So the way that it's set up right now, per his suggestion, which has been working, is Arcane Tempo, Spell Cascade, and Glacier. Glacier is just something that gives these more health, meaning that they'll blow up for more damage, and they're a little bit harder to destroy by the enemies. And then as far as Stormcaller Arrow goes, we've gone basically into full magnitude and chance to shock. So Overcharge, Lightning Pin, and Execrate is what we're going for there. I have not used Escape Shot since campaign. It's very good for building up freeze and stuff like that. I might sometimes run up and use it on a boss to get like additional freeze buildup, but you're already getting so much with Ice Shot, so it's not really worth it. I was using this a lot in the campaign, and I would definitely recommend using it while leveling, because it's a great oh shit button. It'll freeze everything in front of you most of the time if you've got a decent weapon that has the damage for it, and it'll just kind of like reposition you a little bit. So I have it in there for deep freeze so that I could get away from people by increasing the freeze duration, and then also maim so that they would be even slower. When it comes to the curse, we're running hypothermia so that people get negative cold resists with heightened curse and expanse. Now, the one thing about this is I might remove it because right now the amulet that I have is anointed with heavy frost, which makes it so that hits already ignore non-negative elemental resistances of frozen enemies. So you'll be freezing enemies a lot, and basically frostbite becomes useless against a frozen enemy when I have this anointed, because if you reduce its resistances to a positive number, this completely cuts through that anyway, so it's a wasted cast. If it reduces it to a negative number, then you get some bonuses out of it. But I'm still messing around with whether or not I feel like I should be using another marked or curse, but that's what I'm using at the moment. And then as far as the auras go, Herald of Ice is kind of king right now. Magnified Effect with Long Shot and Ellie Focus is incredible. Basically just helps you clear a lot. Then we are a Frenzy based build with Barrage, so we've got Combat Frenzy with Profusion to maybe get ourselves a little bit more charges. We've got Cannibalism, and we have Vitality for some health regen and for some recovery. And then finally Wind Dancer with Blind and Culling Strike, and then we have Clarity on there, just not necessary at all, because I have not run into any mana issues with this build. I don't know personally if I have any leech on any of my gear. Let me see, actually. Don't believe I do. Well, I have 4% of fizz damage. Leeched is mana. So that seems to be enough without clarity. Like, I wasn't even having any problems, but once I threw clarity on it, it was even better. And then Wind Dancer is basically there just to help stack our evasion up, so that we are even harder to hit. And then the Blind and Culling Strike is just for those enemies who do actually happen to hit us. It'll make it a lot harder for them to hit us again. So as far as the gear goes, number one and most important thing to me personally is the amount of arrows that you're firing with Ice Shot. I personally have been liking 3. I was using 4 throughout most of the campaign, like this, but I was having an issue where the enemies I was aiming at, it was like the gap in between, and they wouldn't actually get hit. But in the campaign, the areas are full of dense packed enemies, so this was very good because it gave me a lot of coverage. In maps, however, I've noticed that 3 seems to be a little bit better at the moment, just because it gives me more chances for a better suffix roll. Because the thing about having bow attacks fire an additional arrow is that it takes up one of your suffix slots, which is pretty important for bow builds, because that's where you can get your attack speed, that's where you can get your crit, both of your crit stats, and then also things like leech or life on kill, things like that. Which the life on kill and everything doesn't seem as important, but the attack speed and the crit hit chance, the crit hit damage is very important for bow builds in general. So giving that up for an additional arrow, it's personally up to you, whichever one you like better. I would say try them both. And the way that you'd get 4 arrows, obviously, is you have 1 from your bow, you use a dual string bow for bow attacks, fire an additional arrow, that's 2, and then you have endless munitions from your ascendancy, that's 3, and then if you have a bow with bow attacks, fire an additional arrow, that gives you 4, right? And in PoE 1, it's kind of a good rule of thumb to always have an odd number of arrows. I've noticed most people will say odd number of arrows is the best because it gives you a nice V shape, whereas like if you have an even number, it kind of narrows the V shape and makes it a little bit harder to hit stuff. But yeah, that's basically what I've been doing on my gear, is just making sure that I have 3 projectiles, and then I wanted to get as much attack speed, and then I'm just stacking evasion and capping my resists. Also, to use the 3rd aura and the supports, I did have to get myself a chest piece with some spirit on it, so if you don't have, this isn't a great chest piece anyway. Like it's incredible for resists and for the spirit and the life roll. However, we would definitely want more evasion on this. So this is kind of an interim piece until I get something better. But other than that, you want to get yourself basically some crit hit chance, crit hit damage, and then for this you want to get yourself, I don't have one yet, but crit hit chance and attack speed is incredible. You also want to get something that has proj speed and damage with bow skills, because I don't know if I covered this, but we have feathered fletchings, which means that any changes, increases and reductions to projectile speed also apply to the damage. So any projectile speed is projectile damage. That is actually why we took these nodes up here and why they were so important, because this entire tree right here gave us like something like 70% increased projectile damage, where it's supposed to give 30, 45. It's supposed to give 45. However, we get 60, 76. We get 76% increased projectile damage from this cluster right here. So basically, any proj speed, any proj damage is very important. And then while I'm on the passive skill tree, the jewels as well. You basically want to be going for anything that has percent chance to chain an additional time from terrain. This will just make it so that it feels a little bit more good in those those hallway areas or anything that has terrain behind it. They'll have that chance to bounce back and deal that extra damage that'll blow them up with Herald of Ice. So basically all of my gems or jewels have 7% chance to chain in additional time. And then some of them are going to have like increased damage with bows, attack speed, accuracy rating, things like that. Those are all going to be really good. But yeah, that's basically the build as far as it goes. At the moment, you are going to be running through maps, just throwing out your arrows, killing things. If there's ever a hard to kill pack, you throw down one of these and blow this up, and they'll freeze and die immediately, most likely. Once you hit a rare or a boss, you'll go ahead and use your frenzy charges, throw this down Stormcaller arrow, and then you'll start freezing, right? So that's basically the rotation. Like you actually wouldn't want to barrage first. You want to use wall into the Stormcaller arrow first, then you'll barrage into your Herald of Ice, and you'll be doing a crap ton of damage to a shocked enemy most of the time. So yeah, that's basically it. If you guys have any questions or any suggestions in the comments on how to make this any better, or how it works, please let me know. I will keep you guys updated on the forking idea, whether or not that works as well as I think it does, whether or not it's working at all, everything like that. But other than that, hope you guys are enjoying PoE 2. I definitely am, and peace out.